Hello and welcome back to another video. In today's video, I will be re-reviewing my custom LEGO Transformers Rise of the Beasts Mirage. So if any of you have been fans for a while, then you'll probably have seen this video. But back in those days I was doing short videos with music and I did not speak. So I wanted to revisit this design, as in my opinion, it has a pretty cool car mode and the robot mode is also decent. However, you can definitely see as one of my older figures, as it does not have that good articulation, and the robot mode does suffer. But in my opinion, this is one of the best alt modes I've done, and this car does look pretty good. And it's also one of the most accurate alt modes that I've done. Now, I didn't have time to rebuild this guy, so I have to use old footage, which does mean the quality may suffer, so I apologize for that. But for the most part, it should be alright. So here he is compared to some other figures, and like I said, this is just reused content. So unfortunately the angle here is not great, and this is also on my old background before I switched to the white one. But he is quite a big build here. He does not scale with Speed Champions, as he is definitely too big for them. So he is not close to minifigure scale, and he's probably around a Voyager in terms of the Transformers nowadays, maybe even a Leader, considering what we get. But in my opinion, the car does look quite good from this angle, especially the orange turn signals and the big headlights. And I also like this stud that's meant to be the Porsche logo or the Autobot logo. And I did it in this gold stud so it would stand out more, compared to a grey one. And from the front, it is not really broken up at all, except there is a bit of black under the hood, which I can't really remember if that's accurate or not. And I also like the curved pieces I used behind the headlights, however I only had two, so it does go to these more square pieces. But spinning him to the side, I still think this looks alright. However, you can definitely see here it is quite hollow. But in my opinion, it captures the general shape of the car quite well, even as the spoiler. But I do think the back end is too low down, and unfortunately it is kinda gappy. But I did manage to include the blue stripe, and you can also see the tail lights, which are starting to peek round here. But this is definitely not the best angle. And like I said before, the back does droop down quite a bit due to the weight. And here you can see the rear end, which is actually not too bad considering how it transforms, because I even managed to include the rear view windows. And I do think the taillight looks quite good. However, I think it would be better if it was 8 wide instead of 6 wide, since this front of the car is 8 studs wide, so it does look slightly strange here. And I also managed to include the exhausts, which you can see there. And here from the other side is obviously just the same. But here you can also see the windows a bit better, which in my opinion I did a good job with, considering the pieces I had at the time. However, I do think I could improve on this design, so let me know in the comments down below if you'd like to see a version 2 of this character, as in my opinion he's one of the better movie characters we've seen in recent times. And here he is again from the front. And this is probably the best angle you can view the car at. Unfortunately, the image quality is not the greatest here. However, if you watch my old review, the quality is slightly better, but it just means there will be no commentary, and the video is quite fast. But here, the profile of the car is quite accurate to the movie, and if I were to display this guy, it would definitely be in this alt mode, as in my opinion it does just look better than the robot. Which is not saying the robot is bad, but it definitely looks slightly odd, especially when the video is slowed down and you can actually see the detail. But now it's time for the transformation. So apologies for the animation here, as back then I was not too great at it. And some things are quite fast, but I've tried to slow it down as much as possible. So first you take the ball joint you can see at the top, and the whole rear end will just fold and it will point up to the sky. Unfortunately I do recall this connection being quite loose, as it was only held on by this one mixel joint. And you can see it actually does just untap from the side. So it should look something like this. And I did design this transformation before the Studio Series toy, so it was quite difficult to base it on anything, as I had not seen the movie at the time of making it. So I based it on the Studio Series promo pictures. So for this next step, we'll take this rear end and we'll split it down the middle, where the taillights are. And it should just come out on these double ball joint systems. And this will also unfold the heels of the robot, which are stored in the back of the car. And once this is done, we will take more of these ball joints and we can collapse these sections along the bottom of the legs. So to do this, we just take a ball joint which is situated just above the knee, and we'll fold it down, and this should bring the tires with it, as well as the back of the car, including the spoiler. And once this is done, we'll take all these ball joints, and we're going to essentially wrap these sections around the legs, with the feet ending up on the bottom. And while we'll do this, we'll also straighten out the knees. And unfortunately, the animation here is not the best, so if you struggle to see what happens, I would recommend you slow down the video. But like I said, we essentially just take these ball joints and wrap them around the lower legs, as well as straighten out the knees. And this is how the feet are formed. And the reason the feet are these tail light pieces is because this is actually based on the Studio Series figure, which does have a similar design of feet. Once this is done, we can return to the front of the car. And from here, we'll take those slightly square sections of the headlights, and on the hinge above the wheel, we'll just fold them out, as this is going to give us clearance for later steps. And so you can see here how that should look. And once this is done, we can come to start working on the chest. So to start off with, we're going to collapse the wheels out of the way, as this is just to give us clearance for some other things that we'll need to move. And they should collapse on these ball joints. And once we've done this, we'll take a hinge that is attached to the chest, and we can just fold this up the way. Once this is done, we'll take the real turn indicators, and we can just take these pieces on ball joints and fold them up. So it should look something like this. And once this is all done, we're going to take a hinge that is in the windshield, and we're going to fold this whole assembly backwards, as this will help it compress into the backpack. Now that this is done, we're going to need to take the ball joints on the headlights, as well as the ones next to the real turn indicators, as these are going to have to wrap around the back panel that is there, and it should look something like this. And this is how I got the headlights to be able to sit over the shoulders. Now on the single stud connection, we can take the chest, rotate it, and tab it down. So now the headlights are in the correct, or pretty close to their accurate positions. And this is pretty much the chest done. But now, similar to the Masterpiece Bumblebee's transformation, where it's two halves on a stick, we'll now need to compress this. But before we do that, we may as well rotate around the legs, as there is a joint at the waist. And now on a series of hinges, we can take this whole section and compress the waist into the torso. And here, the rear windshield piece will now form a part of the chest. And I forgot to film it, we also need to hinge the arms down. However, this isn't really a step, just getting them into place. So now it's time to see his robot mode. And here he is, and in my opinion the front does actually look pretty good. But it is more based on the Studio Series toy rather than the actual movie design. So now it's time for some close-ups. So here are the feet, and these are definitely inspired by the Studio Series figure. And even the wheel placement here is reminiscent of that figure instead of the actual movie design, which I do think the movie design is not the greatest. And here's the head and torso, and in my opinion this captures the look quite well. However, I do think if I attempted this design again, I could do it a lot better. And the head is also missing the asymmetrical design it had in the movie, but I think this is a good compromise for the scale. However, I don't think the torso is very detailed for a movie figure, and it's missing that fan that he had in his torso. But like I said before, from afar he does look quite good, and I do think the proportions match the movie quite well. However, he could still be a slightly skinnier. And comparing him to some other figures, here he is, and you can see here, he is definitely a Voyager at least in terms of scale, maybe even a leader. But I've never really cared about scale in the LEGO Transformers. I'm just gonna build them to whatever scale I feel they need to be for that design to work out in LEGO. But this scale probably does work quite well with my recent movie Barricade that I haven't done. However, I've not posted a video on it yet. But Barricade's car mode is 9 studs wide, and this Mirage's is 8, so I do think they'd scale quite well. But spinning him around here, you can see his backpack is absolutely enormous. He has to slightly lean back on his heels just to be able to stand up, and in my opinion this does not look good at all, and I wish I tried to make it compress slightly more, And here at the back, it doesn't look too bad, but it's definitely not accurate, and it just sticks out way too far for my liking. However, it does tab in quite well. And due to the backpack, this is also the reason he has these huge heels, is just so he can actually stand up. But this does mean that he does not really pose very well, because he will just fall over. And here again, you can see he doesn't even stand up straight, just due to the backpack. But from the front, he looks good enough that I don't really care that much. And even though he's not 100% accurate, you have to remember this is one of the earliest figures I have ever done. I'm also not sure what that strange animation was there, as like I said, this is all reused footage from the old review, but given this is my most popular video, I do think it was a good idea to slightly remake it. And if you want me to remake any other videos, please let me know in the comments down below, as I do think it'd be good to add commentary to some of the old videos, such as the Dark of the Moon Optimus, or maybe the G1 Soundwave that I did in the past. But anyways, I hope everybody enjoyed this video, so don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see weekly LEGO Transformers, as well as the daily shorts I've been posting. So hope you all have a good day, and I'll see you all next week.